Many people are living a life they never chose. They just settled. They kept saying yes out of fear, accepted less out of exhaustion, and silenced themselves because they no longer believed they could. And the worst part? They called it maturity. But let's be honest. What you've been calling a rough season might actually be the result of giving up on your original purpose and settling for a backup plan. Stopping isn't wisdom when heaven is still screaming, move. You weren't created to just survive on autopilot. You were called to live with purpose, boldness, and faith. But for that, you'll have to relearn how to move, even without having the full direction. You'll have to trust when everything feels stuck. And you'll have to decide that moving forward, even without seeing the next step, is better than stopping in uncertainty. You know why? Because miracles only happen where there's movement. And maybe yours is just one decision away. Now, before you think this is just another pretty speech, stop and ask yourself, what if today is the day everything changes? What if the breakthrough you've been waiting for is only stuck because you stopped where you should have pushed through? Take a deep breath, because from here on out, you're going to understand why stopping is simply not an option. Some people think God works with improvisation, like he's constantly adjusting to our mistakes. But the truth is different. Plan A has always been the only plan he designed perfectly. There's no plan B in heaven. What we call plan B is often just a human adaptation that fills the gap when anxiety replaces faith. When we try to take control without waiting for the right time, we end up on shortcuts. And the problem with shortcuts is that while they might get you somewhere fast, it's often the wrong destination. Think about it. How many times have you given up on something you knew was yours just because it was taking too long? Maybe a dream, a calling, a purpose, and by the time you realized it, you were already living a discounted version of what should have been great. It's like ordering filet mignon and settling for instant noodles because the steak was taking too long. One nourishes your soul, the other just fills your stomach for a moment. Plan A demands patience, but it rewards with fulfillment. Spiritual maturity begins when we stop trying to convince God to change the plan and instead trust him enough not to change ours. He's already ahead, waiting at the right chapter in your story. Faith sometimes is just that, standing firm when everything in you wants to run. And it's often in those frozen moments that God begins to act, but never quite in the way we expect. God loves showing up at the last minute, not out of cruelty, but to prove that miracles aren't plan C. They're a signature. And we only understand that when we run out of options, when the money's gone, the doors are closed, the strength runs out. That's when the supernatural starts to move. He won't intervene while you're still clinging to control. He waits for surrender. As long as there's a plan me, there's no room for plan him. Ever tried everything and still hit a wall? That's the sweet spot where he shows that his provision doesn't rely on resumes, logic, or social status. Have you seen ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things? Heard stories of folks who had no way out and yet somehow made it? That wasn't luck. That was miracle. And miracles can't be explained, they're recognized. You know when it's God's hand because the result stuns even the skeptics. So next time everything feels like it's falling apart, maybe it's just heaven getting started. And yes, you can get ready for it. Not with extra plans, but with deeper faith. Try this. Keep a prayer journal. Take moments of silence before major decisions. Have raw conversations with heaven before you react. These small disciplines change how we view impossibilities. And slowly, impossibilities become testimonies. Most people don't see what God promised. They only see what they've been through, and that severely limits their vision. The mind gets stuck on past failures, past pain, and what was missing. It's like trying to paint a future with a broken brush. But God's promises don't come from your past. They come from his future. He's already seen it work. He's seen you arrive. He knows how this ends. The challenge is that we're still looking through the lens of pain. That's why we sabotage ourselves. We settle for less, avoid trying again, give up before we even start. The fear of getting hurt again makes us spin in circles. But faith calls you to go beyond your experience. Want a simple exercise? Write down where you see yourself 5 years from now. Even if it sounds crazy, then read it out loud. That small act rewires your mindset, and reconnects you to the promise instead of the trauma. The turning point comes when you realize you don't need a full picture to trust. It's not about knowing every step. It's about knowing who's leading. You don't need to understand the how, just trust the who. And as you walk, even with blurry vision, the scene gets clearer with each step. On that road, ancient stories still echo as powerful reminders. God has a thing for choosing the unlikely. From the outside, nobody would have guessed. Just a shepherd boy, a dreamer sold by his brothers, an elderly woman called to become a mother, a boat builder in the desert, a rookie leader facing walls taller than his hope. None of them looked like much, but to God, they had what mattered: availability. These aren't fairy tales. They're living proof that the extraordinary doesn't begin with resources. It begins with surrender. Miracles show up when someone says yes in the middle of their doubts. You don't have to be the smartest or the strongest, just the one who moves despite the fear. Today, that might mean sending a resume, asking for forgiveness, going back to school, or walking away from what's been slowly killing your soul. The beauty of these stories is that they keep repeating, only the names change. Heaven still calls unlikely people to do the impossible. But here's the catch: divine timing doesn't tolerate anxious substitutions. And it was exactly when a promise seemed too late that one of the most impulsive decisions in history was made. When a promise delays, shortcuts start to look appealing. That's what happened with Sarah. God made a promise, but time passed and she decided to help. The result? A child outside of promise, and a conflict that echoes to this day. It shows that trying to assist God on our terms usually leads to chaos. Rushing can place us in situations he never intended, and the cost may last generations. Don't think this is just ancient history. How many times have you made a rushed decision, only to deal with the fallout? Marriages without peace, jobs with no calling, partnerships with no alignment, all because you couldn't wait. And the most dangerous part, after we adapt the plan, we try to convince ourselves it was God's will. But what comes outside of his timing, no matter how good it looks, can become a burden. Not every open door was opened by him. This isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about refusing to cling to them once they're clear. And what if the detour wasn't the end, but the signal to return to the original plan? The call still pulses. But to hear it again, clearly, you might need to walk away from stability that's actually spiritual mediocrity in disguise. Some people have grown numb to a life that no longer hurts. It just dulls. They're on autopilot, paying bills, posting smiles, but inside, hollow. And it all started the moment they gave up on the original dream and settled for good enough. Spiritual mediocrity isn't about lacking religion. It's about lacking direction. It's when your soul stops seeking and just starts surviving. The saddest part? Sometimes you don't even realize you lost purpose. You just call it maturity. The comfort of adaptation is deceptive. We trade calling for salary, passion for popularity, faith for formulas. We live other people's dreams, follow a path that looks responsible, and then wake up realizing we were never really part of the story. Sound familiar? Maybe a bit too familiar. Here's your wake-up call. Living outside of God may feel safer, but it's the fastest road to being lost, even when everything looks in order. Now, imagine choosing to return to divine alignment, not by quitting your life and running to the desert, but by picking up what you once buried, a forgotten project, a calling, a lifestyle that actually matches your identity. Mediocrity dies when identity is revived, and that takes more than logic. It takes the kind of trust that defies understanding. Sometimes, God's plan looks so outrageous that even people of faith chuckle nervously. Human logic wants spreadsheets, maps, timelines, but God rarely hands out manuals. He just gives you a direction. That's the challenge, trusting without all the answers, obeying without full clarity, walking without the whole map. That's not recklessness, that's faith. Let's be honest, if it all made sense, it wouldn't be a miracle. It'd be a self-made project. We all feel safer when we're in control, but control is an illusion. True security lies in knowing who's in charge. Want a practical shift? When fear hits you before a big step, don't ask, what if it goes wrong? Ask, what if this is exactly what God wants? That one question changes your whole perspective. And when your angle changes, your direction does too. Here's the truth. God's not calling you to understand. He's calling you to obey. And along the way, He reveals what you need when you need it. So stop waiting for every light to turn green before you move. Sometimes, the next light only turns on after you take that first step. And the moment we shut down our human plans, something divine begins loading in the background. There are times the soul freezes like an old computer. Too many windows open, glitching, system overload. You know what helps? Forcing a shutdown. Some human plans need to be closed manually for heaven's plan to launch. Trusting God means pressing restart even if you're afraid of losing everything. But with Him, you never lose, you exchange. Isn't it strange how hard it is to let go of a plan you built? Even when it's clearly failing, we cling to it because we've already started. But holding on to what is no life left is draining what little life you have. Sometimes, the restart doesn't come with thunder. It comes with a quiet internal click. And that click might be as small as leaving a toxic group, ending a draining partnership, or walking away from environments that steal your connection with God. When you start living intentionally, everything shifts. You stop running on survival mode and start living aligned with heaven. It's like formatting your soul to install a new operating system from God. And His system doesn't run corrupted files from the comfort zone. It runs clean code written in boldness. Living in God's plan A isn't for those who play it safe. It's for those who dare believe in the invisible. It takes courage to leave comfort and step onto faith's soil. It's like skydiving while trusting God stitched the parachute. Boldness isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move anyway. And it starts with small acts. Saying no to what doesn't match you, reviving a shelled dream, or letting go of what's holding you back. Many wait for a sign from heaven, but truth is, heaven is often waiting for action from earth. Action attracts miracles. One step in faith unlocks doors that have been stuck for years. Have you thought of being the first in your family to try something no one dared? Maybe starting a business, studying abroad, writing a book, adopting a child. Things that feel too big, but really just need one yes. Boldness activates promises that complacency puts to sleep. And don't get it twisted. There will be resistance. People will think you're crazy. They'll question your every move. But if it were easy, anyone could do it. Plan A is reserved for those who know they were called to walk on water, not sit comfortably in the boat. And maybe, just maybe, now that all of this is clicking, it's time to return to beginning with a whole new perspective. Now that you've made it this far, let me ask you something simple but real. How much longer are you going to wait to step into what's already yours? Because deep down, you know, something big is calling you. And it's not ego, it's purpose. So why keep walking in circles, adjusting plan, settling for less? It's time to stop negotiating with your identity and finally live it. Think, what do you need to shut down today so God can restart freely? What decision have you been avoiding because of what others might say? What if that one decision is the very thing that will unlock everything you've been praying for? And if not now, then when? It's not about speed, it's about direction. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Drop a comment about what hit you the most and tell us, what decision are you taking today? And of course, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on the notifications. Because here, every week, you'll find clarity, encouragement, and the courage to remember. Stopping was never an option.